Hi, this is Ben Gassier. Today I'm going to talk a bit about SketchUp and Fusion 360 and my somewhat reluctant decision to give up SketchUp and go to Fusion 360. Now, I really love SketchUp. I've made some really large projects in SketchUp, like this mural here. Let me open it. So this is a mural that I made that in SketchUp that's going to go on my wall. You can actually see a picture of the finished product here. So it's a very large project. There are 100 different buildings, and if you zoom in on any one of these components, you can see that each building is individually modeled, and each building actually has 3 different layers to it. So I spent a lot of time in SketchUp creating this project. And it was a pretty good tool for this. I enjoyed using it, and I found it pleasurable to actually create all these buildings. I really liked the design of them. Now, I spent a lot of time making each building, and now I want to reuse some of these buildings in other projects. And that's where I find that SketchUp is limiting me in what I can do with them. I can resize them, so I can go in and actually say I want to scale this building here, so I can make it taller or bigger, or I can make it wider if I need to. But what I can't do is change the angles of the building. So for example, let's get out of this. If instead of having 100 buildings, I wanted 50 buildings instead, I wouldn't be able to change these angles. Right now, the angle of every building is 3.6 degrees, so that I can fit 100 of them in a 360-degree circle. If I only wanted 50, each one of these would have to be 7.2 degrees in angle. So I can't go in and say I want to just make the base bigger without actually making the top bigger as well. So if I'm going to spend all this time creating more buildings and making more things, I wanted to do it in a tool that will allow me to change not only the size of the buildings, but also the angles. So if I want to make all the buildings going on the outside instead of on the inside, well, there the angles would have to be going the other way. Or if I want to put more or less buildings, then I want to be able to change the angles. Or if I'm making something where the buildings are straight, I don't want them to be at an angle at all. So I looked around for some different software, and that's one of the reasons I haven't made a video in a while, is that I've been evaluating all of these different pieces of software. One that I've come across that I've found can actually do what I want is Fusion 360. So let's go to Fusion 360, and I'll show you how I actually use it to make some buildings. All right, so I've opened Fusion 360, and I'm going to want to make a building. I made a quick little sketch of the building I want to make. It's going to be extremely simple just for this tutorial. So it's going to have 2 levels, 1, 2. I've written down the heights of every element here. So base is 6/10 of the building, and then this from here to here is 1/10, and then this will be 2/10, and then 1/10. And I can change that later. And also this line will be about halfway from the midpoint to the actual edge as well. So that's what this 1/2 is referring to. So let's sketch that out in Fusion 360. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create some parameters. That's going to allow me to specify the base, the height, and the angle of the building. So let's start with the base. I'm going to give it a name of B because I refer to it all over the place. I'm not going to give it a long name. And it's going to be 3 inches at the base. And then I'm going to add a second one for the height, H. That's going to be, say, 24 inches. Then I'm going to add a third one. And this is the angle at which the walls of the building are meeting the base of the building. And this is an angle. It's going to be in degrees. And I'm going to say it's minus 1.8. you'll see how this is used. I want the whole building to be 3.6 degrees an angle from the top. So by using minus 1.8 on each side, that gives me a 3.6. You'll see. Just go with it for now. So I have my base, my height, and my angle. Now hit OK. So let's start by sketching in the base. So I'm going to hit L for line, where I could have come in here and picked line. And I'm going to select this plane on which to make my sketch. So that created a new sketch for me here, and I'm now in sketch mode. I'm going to go to the origin and start making a line for my base. Boom. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to make a line down the middle, going all the way up. And I'm not too worried about the size of these lines yet. I'm going to make one on the side here. That'll be the side of my building. So now we're going to start adding dimensions. I'm going to hit the D for dimension. I'm going to come here. I'm going to say this is my one side of my building. So the length of this line is the base divided by 2, because there'll be one on each side. This building will be symmetrical. And that did that, so it's now 1.5 from there to there. I'm going to put this line and say I want this to be the height. And the first side of my building, I wanted it to be the height divided by, let's go back, let's go see, 6/10. So height times 6/10. Now this line isn't at the right angle. So let's go in and make a dimension between those two lines. So now what do I want this to be at? I want this to be 90 degrees plus the angle that I put in. So since I put minus 1.8, this line's going to go at 88.2. All right, so let's go back to my picture. Now here I need something that goes to there. So let's sketch those in. I want a line from here to about here. Then I want a line going upwards. And I'm purposely not making them go straight so that I don't get some constraints about it being vertical or horizontal. And then the last line will go up to the top. Okay, so now I need to add more dimensions. So if I add a dimension from here to here, I said that was going to be the height times 1/10. And I can then move this line over back on this side. I wanted this line to be the height times 2/10. And then this one should automatically be the height times 1/10. And it's telling me I can't add a dimension. I'm going to over constrain it. I can give it a driven dimension just to see what that length is. And it is in fact 1/10 the height of my building. Now these lines are still blue because I can still move these points around and they're not fully constrained. And what I wanted is I want this line to be going about halfway between this line and this line. So let's put a line halfway between this line and this line. So let's start, and we're going to put it here. We're going to put it like that. Now I'm going to put a dimension and say this from there to there. Oops. It's added a halfway constraint. I'm going to remove it just to show you if I want to put this 3/4 or somewhere else. I'm going to put a dimension. I want this to be, in fact, base divided by 2 times 1/2. Now what angle do I want this? I want this line to be 90 plus half of my angle. Oops, times 8. So you can see that this line is about halfway between this line and a straight edge. The one in the middle is always going to be at 90. The edges are going to be at the angle I specified. And in the middle will be whatever line or whatever proportional distance or angle it's going to be. So I'm not actually using this line in my sketch. I'm going to make it a construction line. But I want this line to be actually in line with this one. I want it to be collinear is what's called. So I'm going to take this line and say it's collinear with this line. And as you can see, it actually made that line exactly in line with this line. So if ever I change where this line is, this line will follow. And everything has turned black to show me that everything is now where it should be. And it somewhat corresponds to our sketch. It's only missing this little line here. Oh, and the other half of the building. So let's start by adding that line. It's going to go from here to there. And it's going to be parallel to this line. There we go. And now I can grab all of these lines. In fact, I'm just going to grab everything and say sketch, mirror. I'm going to deselect the mirror line and then come in and say mirror everything on this line here. And hit OK. And there we go. We have a sketch for my building. If I say stop sketch, you can see what it looks like. And I can now change these parameters. I can now say, well, I don't want the base to be 3, I want it to actually be 6 inches. And it actually goes up. I don't want it to be 24, I want it to be 36 inches. And the whole thing goes up. And here's the interesting one. I don't want the angle to be 1.8, I don't want it to be pitching in, I want the walls to be straight. So I can say 0, now the walls are straight. Or if I'm going to be on the outside of a curve, I can say they're now going to at 1.8. And you see that they're now angling out of the building as opposed to angling in towards the building. So let's change those back. I'm going to go back to 24. I want this back at 3. And there we go. So I have my building that's all fully parameterized. I can now extract parts of the building. So I hit E for extrude, sorry, not extract, extrude, and I can select what parts of the building I want to extrude and say that my material thickness is going to be 1/8. And it creates a 1/8 thick slice for that building. So then I can hide it and then extract some other part. So maybe for the second part, I just want this, this, and this. Or do it this way. So that'll be the second part. And again, with that 1/8. And hide that one. And then extract. The last part will be just this one. And again, 1/8. And now I have the 3 bodies of my building. And I can move them so that this one is moved up by 1/4 of an inch. And this one is moved up by 1/8 of an inch. And if I hide my sketch, you can now see I have a building that is fully parameterized. I can still change the parameters. I can say this building is now 12 inch tall and it's going at 4 degrees. And I want the base to be 1. So it's very thin, but it's going out really much. So this allows me to design the buildings once and then use them in other projects as I see fit. I can resize them, but I can also re-angle them if that's a word. And that's the reason that I'm leaning towards doing all this design work in Fusion 360 instead of doing it in SketchUp. I'm not fully committed yet. I've actually designed several buildings in this style. So you can say, see this one here. Is a building. I've actually gave it some texture as well, just to see what it would look like in wood. But again, I can change the parameters and say I want this to be a 36 inch tall building. It'll go through and actually make the building much taller. So by designing all the buildings here, I'm going to have a lot more flexibility in how I can use those buildings in the future. So that's it for now. I hope this tutorial or this talk was interesting. If you have tips and tricks for me on how to use Fusion, send them my way. I'm still learning, but I will hopefully be posting more videos about this at a later time. Thank you. Bye.